The lobby buzzed with the usual morning energy when the sharp voice cut through the air. "Move, you're stinking up the whole lobby." Harper kicked her latte sideways. Hot coffee splashed across Theo's shoes. "Oops, clean that up, Grandpa. Some of us actually work here." Theo knelt down slowly, his bad knee protesting with every inch. He kept his voice low and steady. "Yes, ma'am, right away." "Look at him," Harper said loudly, her words dripping with mockery. "Slowest thing I ever saw." Laughter rippled from the small group nearby. Reed leaned in close, his tone dripping with contempt. "How much they pay you, boy? $12 an hour? That why you smell like a wet dog?" Theo kept wiping, the rag moving in quiet, deliberate strokes. "I'm sorry for the mess, sir." "Sorry don't fix slow," Harper spat. She dropped a dollar bill onto his back. "Buy yourself some soap." They walked off, still laughing. What they didn't know was that the quiet older man they had just humiliated held their entire future in his hands. Before long, every single one of them would learn his real name the hard way. The building was Brighthaven Financial Group, 19 floors of glass and steel, rising out of downtown Charlotte, North Carolina. It managed billions in assets. The kind of place where the marble in the lobby cost more than most people's houses, and where the word bonus was whispered like a prayer. Everyone who worked at Brighthaven knew two things. First, the firm had been built many years ago by a founder nobody had seen in a long time. Some said he was retired in the Caribbean. Some said he was sick. Some said he had sold the company quietly and moved on. Nobody really knew. They just knew his name appeared on the bottom of every single paycheck, Theodore Nash. That was the closest most of them ever got to the man. The second thing they knew was the old janitor, or rather, what they thought they knew about him. He arrived every morning before the security shift changed, before the lights came on in the lobby. He walked with a slight limp, dragging his left foot just a little, and pushed a yellow cleaning cart that squeaked when the wheels turned. His uniform was always pressed. His shoes were always polished, even when people kicked coffee onto them. He cleaned floors 1 through 18 every weekday in the same exact order he had followed for years. He never went up to the 19th floor. The employees joked about it. "He's not allowed up there," Reed told a new hire once, smirking. "That's where the real people work." The new hire laughed. Nobody ever asked the old man his name. Most of them just called him Hey or You or Grandpa. A few of the kinder ones called him Sir the first week and then forgot. His name was Theodore Nash. He was the founder, the chairman, and the majority shareholder of the entire company, and he had been cleaning their floors for many years. Only 3 people in the building knew the truth. The first was Evelyn Brooks, his executive assistant of many years, a quiet woman who greeted him every morning in the service elevator and kept his secret like it was sacred. The second was Vivian Ellsworth, the chair of the board, who called him every week to go over the week ahead. The third was Marcus Sullivan, the night security guard, who had served in the military and knew a fellow veteran when he saw one. Marcus saluted Theo every morning. Theo saluted back. Nobody ever noticed. Why did he do it? Why did the founder of a billion-dollar firm spend his days mopping toilets and emptying trash cans? The answer was a woman named Lillian Nash, his mother. In a bank in downtown Birmingham, Alabama, Lillian, a black cleaning woman in her 40s with 3 jobs and 1 son, was on her hands and knees scrubbing a coffee stain off a marble floor. A young white teller walked past her, deliberately tipped over a glass of water and said, "Do it again, girl, and try to be quicker this time." The whole bank watched. Some laughed. Lillian did it again. Her son Theodore was a young boy standing outside the glass doors, waiting for her shift to end. He saw the whole thing. He couldn't do anything. Years later, when Lillian was dying of cancer in a small house in Charlotte, she held her grown son's hand and said, "Teddy, build something different and don't ever stop walking the halls yourself, because titles lie, paychecks lie. But how a man treats a stranger who can do nothing for him, that's the truth. That's the only report card that matters." Theodore Nash never forgot. Every week for many years, he picked one floor of his company. He put on the janitor's uniform. He walked. He listened. He watched, and he learned exactly what kind of people his managers really were when they thought no one important was watching. There was one more thing nobody at Brighthaven knew. For the past several months, Theo had been quietly building a case. 3 shell vendor companies, forged invoices, wire transfers that didn't add up. Someone inside the building was stealing millions, and Theo had every receipt. This particular week, Theo chose the 12th floor, finance and human resources. He had no idea that a young woman named Harper Alderman was about to make the worst decision of her entire career. And the day of the scheduled termination, of course, was payday. It started small, it always does. Early that morning, Theo was wiping down the kitchenette on the 12th floor when Harper Alderman walked in carrying a fresh iced coffee. She saw him bent over the counter, scrubbing at a syrup stain somebody had left. She stopped. She smiled, and she tilted her cup sideways and dumped half of it onto the floor right next to his feet. "Whoops," she said. Theo straightened up, looked at the puddle, then looked at her. "Morning, ma'am. I'll get that right up for you. You'd better. I have a meeting soon." She walked out. 2 steps from the door, she turned around, pulled a $1 bill out of her purse, and tossed it on the floor next to the puddle. "Tip, Grandpa, don't spend it all in one place." Soon after, she was in the open plan office showing the video she had filmed of the lobby incident to her work friend Reed Bennett. Reed, a sales associate with hair gelled like he was still in his fraternity days, watched the video twice and laughed out loud both times. "Bro, he looks like he's about to die down there." "Right?" Harper said. "And the smell. I'm not even joking." Reed leaned back in his chair, looked across the floor, and saw Theo pushing a trash bin down the hallway. He grinned. He stood up, walked over, and as Theo passed him, kicked the bin sideways. Trash spilled across the carpet, coffee cups, paper plates, somebody's old salad container. "Oops," Reed said. "Slippery floor. You should probably mop that, huh?" Theo looked at the mess, looked at Reed, and said nothing. He bent down slowly because of his knee and started picking up the garbage. Reed walked back to his desk and high-fived Harper. Paige Whitmore saw the whole thing. She was the HR director, the kind of woman who used the word professional the way other people use the word obedient. She walked past the spilled trash, glanced down at Theo on his hands and knees, and made eye contact with Harper. She didn't say a word. She just smiled, a small, tight, knowing smile. Then she pulled Harper aside near the printer. "Listen, I didn't see anything, but if you want to write up some performance notes about how slow he is, how the lobby looked dirty when you got in this morning, I'd file that quietly. By the end of the week, I can have him gone." Harper blinked. "Wait, really?" "Really, he's a liability. He's old. He moves like molasses. Cost of benefits on a man his age is brutal. We've been waiting for an excuse." Paige smoothed her blazer. "Document everything. Be specific. Make it sound serious." Harper lit up like a Christmas tree. The video spread quickly online. By afternoon, things had escalated. Several of them were in the kitchenette now. Harper, Reed, Jenna from compliance, Taylor from marketing, Cole from sales. They had filled plastic water bottles from the sink. When they saw Theo come around the corner pushing his cart, they emptied all of them onto the floor at once. Water spread in a wide, glistening pool, slowly creeping toward the cabinets. "Oh no," Harper called out, hand over her mouth in mock horror. "Big spill! Grandpa, we need you up here. It's an emergency." Theo set down his cart and walked over. He looked at the water. He looked at the 5 young people standing around it, phones out. He understood exactly what was happening. He got down on his knees. Jenna pulled out her phone and started a stopwatch. "Okay, everybody, bets. How long does it take?" "I'm saying quite a while. Cole, what about you?" "Look at him. He's basically geological." Theo wrung out the mop and began. The 5 of them stood in a loose half circle, counting out loud. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Reed started clapping along with the count, slow and deliberate. Jenna joined him, then Cole, then Taylor. Soon all 5 of them were clapping in unison while Theo, on his hands and knees, mopped up water that had been deliberately poured out for him. When he was almost finished, Reed took another bottle of water he had been hiding behind his back and dumped it right in front of Theo's mop. "Oops, my hand slipped." The kitchenette exploded with laughter. Theo's right knee was bleeding through his uniform pants. The skin had split where he had been kneeling. He didn't say anything, he just moved the mop to the new puddle and kept working. That was the first day. The next day was worse. Harper came in and created a private group chat called #TooSlowChallenge. She invited several people. By midday, more had joined. By the end of the day, even more. People were posting candid photos of Theo from across the office. Theo at the elevator, Theo wiping a window, Theo eating his lunch alone in the service stairwell. Captions like "Day 2, Turtle Update," and "Bet you he doesn't finish before retirement," and "Someone please check his pulse." Jenna made a meme of Theo's face on a Ninja Turtle. It spread with hundreds of reactions in just hours. But the worst thing happened at lunch in the break room on the 12th floor. Many people were in there eating salads, scrolling phones, laughing. Theo walked in, pushing his cart to wipe down a grease spot somebody had left on the long table by the window. Harper stood up on a chair. "Ladies and gentlemen," she called out, holding her arms wide like a circus announcer. "Welcome to day 2 of the Grandpa Cleaning Challenge. Will he finish before the lunch rush ends? Place your bets now." People laughed. Someone whistled. Reed, sitting at the corner table, stood up too. He started clapping, slow, deliberate, like a metronome. Clap, clap, clap. Taylor joined in, then Cole, then Jenna, then others. Then somebody began chanting, "Too slow." Clap, clap. Too slow. Within moments, the entire break room had picked it up. Many voices synchronized, pounding the rhythm with their hands, while the old black man wiped down their lunch table. "Too slow, too slow, too slow." Theo stopped. He set down his rag. He stood up straight, slowly, painfully because of his knee, and looked around the room. He looked at every single face. He didn't say a word. He just looked, and he memorized. Then he picked up his rag and finished wiping the table. Standing in the doorway watching was Marcus Sullivan in his security uniform. He had heard the noise from down the hall. He took out his phone and started recording. Several minutes of footage, the clearest, most damning evidence of what many human beings could do to one quiet old man on his lunch break. When Theo finished, he turned to Harper, who was still standing on her chair. He said quietly, "Young lady, does your mother know what you're doing here?" The room went still. Harper recovered fast. She laughed loud and performative. "My mother knows I make good money, Grandpa. How much do you make?" Half the room went, "Ooh." Theo looked at her for a long moment. "More than you'd think, miss. More than you'd think." He pushed his cart out of the room. The following day, the harassment had become organized. Reed and Cole taped several battery-powered alarm clocks to Theo's cleaning cart. They set them all to go off in the morning. The alarm tone was a recording someone had made on their phone. A voice screaming, "Wake up, Grandpa!" Theo found the cart, calmly turned off all the alarms, and continued his shift. The video of the moment spread widely online. Harper ordered a cake from a bakery downtown and had it delivered the next morning. The icing on top read, in cheerful pink fondant, "Happy retirement, Grandpa. Finally." She brought it into the break room and set it on the counter while Theo was wiping down the microwave. "Here, sweetheart," she said, sliding a plate toward him. "We made you a goodbye cake. Have a piece. Consider it severance." Jenna snickered. "Careful, sugar's bad at his age." Paige walked through the break room, saw the cake, took a photo with 3 of the women, and posted it on social media that afternoon. The caption read, "Team culture at its finest." She had cropped Theo out of the frame. Theo did not eat the cake. He cleaned the microwave. He pushed his cart to the next room, and he kept counting faces. The day of the termination meeting and payday arrived, and Theo had decided this was the day it all ended. Early that morning, Theo arrived at the building the way he always did, through the side service entrance. Janitor's uniform pressed and clean. Cleaning cart waiting where he had left it the night before. He nodded at Marcus Sullivan, who was finishing his overnight shift. Marcus nodded back, but this time his eyes were wet. "Mr. T," Marcus said quietly, "you okay?" "I will be, son, after today." Marcus didn't ask what he meant. He just held the door open. Theo started his rounds, lobby first, like always. He mopped the marble where Harper had kicked her latte days earlier. He wiped down the brass handles on the front doors. He emptied the trash bins by the elevators. To anyone watching the security feed, it looked like every other day of the last many years. Up on the 12th floor, the mood was electric. Everybody knew. The termination meeting was on the calendar for that afternoon, and the whole office had been waiting all week for the show. Harper had brought in cupcakes. Reed had a bottle of champagne hidden in his desk drawer. Paige kept walking past Harper's cubicle and giving her a small, satisfied nod every time. At one point that morning, two things happened that nobody on the 12th floor noticed. The first was that Evelyn Brooks, sitting at her desk on the 19th floor, opened the company calendar system and quietly changed the location of the afternoon termination meeting. She moved it from the conference room on the 12th floor up to the executive boardroom on the 19th floor. She did not send a notification, she just changed the location field and saved it. The second thing was that Evelyn picked up the phone, called the accounting department, and said in her calm, professional voice, "Hi, it's Evelyn from the chairman's office. Mr. Holloway wants to distribute the paychecks personally in this afternoon's meeting. Could you bring the entire batch up to the 19th floor boardroom by mid-afternoon? Yes, all of them. Thank you so much." Victor Holloway had not asked any such thing. Victor Holloway did not even know the paychecks existed as physical objects. He paid himself by direct deposit and assumed everyone else did too. He had no idea Brighthaven still printed paper checks. He had certainly never heard the name Lillian Nash. By midday, many crisp white envelopes were stacked neatly on the long mahogany table in the executive boardroom on the 19th floor. Each one had a name printed on the front. Each one contained a paper paycheck, and every single one of those paychecks had a blank line at the bottom right corner waiting to be signed. Later, Paige Whitmore got a notification on her phone that the meeting location had changed. She frowned. She called Evelyn. "Hi, the Nash termination this afternoon. Why is it at 19? Evelyn's voice was perfectly flat. "Mr. Holloway asked for the executive boardroom this afternoon. He said he wanted to handle the paperwork himself." "Victor did?" "Yes, ma'am." Paige hesitated. It was strange. Victor never came down for a custodial termination. He barely came down for VP-level firings. But Evelyn was the chairman's assistant, technically, and Evelyn was always right about scheduling. So Paige shrugged it off. "Fine. We'll see you up there." Later that afternoon, Theo rolled his cleaning cart into the service elevator. He pressed 19. The doors slid shut. When they opened, Evelyn was standing there. In her hand was a garment bag. "Mr. Nash?" "Evelyn?" She didn't smile. Neither did he. There was nothing to smile about. They walked together down the hallway to his private office, the one nobody on the lower floors knew existed. The one with his name on the door in small brass letters that almost nobody had ever read closely enough to recognize. Inside, on his desk, sat a heavy silver fountain pen, the same pen he had used to sign every paycheck for many years. He took off the janitor's gloves. He took off the gray uniform shirt. Evelyn helped him into a charcoal suit, white shirt, and dark blue tie. She straightened his cufflinks. She smoothed the lapels. The gold signet ring with the letters L.N. Lillian Nash was already on his right pinky where it had been for many years. He looked at himself in the mirror. "Mama," he said quietly. "I tried." Evelyn handed him a black leather folio. Inside were the documents on Victor Holloway, bank records, wire transfers, LLC filings, photos of Victor in the parking garage handing a USB drive to his brother-in-law. Several months of patient, careful work. She also handed him the silver fountain pen. "They're all in the boardroom, sir," she said. Vivian, the auditors, counsel, the agents from the bureau just arrived in the lobby. Security is bringing them up the back way. Theo nodded. "And the paychecks?" "On the table, all of them waiting for you." He took a long breath. "Then let's go to work." The executive boardroom on the 19th floor had a long mahogany table. The walls were paneled in dark walnut. One wall held a row of framed magazine covers from the past many years. Forbes, Fortune, Black Enterprise, the Charlotte Business Journal. Each one featured the same black man at different ages. None of the people about to walk through the door had ever been allowed up here. None of them had ever looked closely at the face on those magazine covers. At the appointed time, Theo Nash sat down at the head of the table. In front of him was a stack of many white envelopes. Beside the stack was the silver fountain pen. He uncapped the pen. He pulled the top envelope toward him, opened it, drew out the paycheck inside, and signed his name on the bottom right corner in steady, flowing cursive. Theodore Nash? He set that check aside, took the next one, signed Theodore Nash. Around the table sat Vivian Ellsworth, the chair of the board in a navy suit. Two outside auditors from a firm in New York, both partners, both carrying laptops. The general counsel of Brighthaven Financial, a tall woman named Patricia. Three other board members, Evelyn Brooks taking notes on a yellow legal pad. And in the corner, two agents from the FBI's Charlotte field office in plain dark suits sitting very still. Theo signed another check. Scratch, another. Scratch. At the scheduled time, the boardroom door opened. Paige Whitmore walked in first, holding a manila folder labeled Nash T. Termination. Behind her came Victor Holloway, looking annoyed at having been called up to the executive floor for what he assumed was a short custodial firing. Behind Victor came Harper Alderman, who had insisted on being there because she wanted to film the moment the old man got walked out. Her phone was already in her hand. All three of them stopped. They saw the table. They saw the people seated around it. They saw the FBI agents in the corner. They saw the stack of envelopes. And at the head of the table, in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, they saw an old black man calmly signing checks with a silver fountain pen. Theo did not look up. Scratch, scratch, scratch. For several seconds, nobody in the room said a word. The only sound was the pen on paper. Harper's phone slowly lowered to her side. Vivian Ellsworth stood up. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "Allow me to introduce, for those of you who have not had the pleasure," Vivian said, "Mr. Theodore Nash, founder, chairman, and majority shareholder of Brighthaven Financial Group, the man whose signature has appeared on every paycheck each of you has received for the entire duration of your employment at this firm." The silence grew heavier. Paige's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. The manila folder in her hand began to shake. Victor Holloway's face went the specific shade of gray that comes when the brain has just realized something the mouth has not yet caught up to, and Harper Alderman's knees gave out. She didn't fall exactly. She grabbed the back of the nearest chair with both hands and slid downward in a slow, controlled collapse, her shoulders shaking, her mouth working soundlessly. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, oh my God." One of the auditors quietly pushed a glass of water across the table toward her. She didn't touch it. She couldn't move her hands. Theo signed several more checks calmly, methodically. He set them down. He capped the pen. He folded his hands on the table. He looked up. "Please," he said, "sit down. We have a performance review to conduct, just not the one that you scheduled." Paige found her voice first. It came out high and fast and panicked. "Mr. Nash, there's clearly been the paperwork was, the policy requires that." Theo raised one hand slowly. He did not say stop. He simply raised his hand. Paige's voice died in her throat. Victor tried next. He plastered on the smile he used at golf tournaments. "Theodore, wow, what a real pleasure. I've been meaning to come up and introduce myself for months. You know how it is. The schedule just..." Theo looked at him, 2 words. "Sit down." Victor sat down. Harper was still gripping the back of the chair. The auditor gently guided her into it. She sat. She stared at the stack of envelopes. She stared at the silver pen. She stared at the gold ring on Theo's finger. She put both her hands over her face and began to cry. Theo waited. Then he reached for a tablet on the table, tapped the screen twice, and the large monitor on the boardroom wall came to life. The video began to play. It was Harper standing on a chair in the 12th floor break room. "Welcome to day 2 of the Grandpa Cleaning Challenge." The chant began. "Too slow, too slow." The whole room, many voices, the clapping, the laughter. Theo wiping the table while it happened. Harper sobbed into her hands. Theo let it play to the end, several minutes. Nobody at the table moved. When it ended, Theo turned the screen off. "I am not showing this to embarrass you, Ms. Alderman," he said. His voice was quiet. "I am showing it because in a few minutes I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer you give me will determine whether you walk out of this building today with a future in this industry or without one." He turned then to the row of magazine covers on the wall. He pointed at one, the Charlotte Business Journal from years ago. A young black man in his early 30s, smiling, holding the keys to a brand new building. That is me at that age. I founded this firm the year after my mother died. My mother was a cleaning woman in Birmingham, Alabama. She was treated every single day of her life the way the three of you treated me this week. I built Brighthaven Financial so that would not happen here. And for many years, mostly, it did not. He let that hang in the air. Once a week for many years, I have walked the halls of my own company in a janitor's uniform because titles lie, paychecks lie, emails lie. But how a person treats a stranger who can do nothing for them, that is the truest report card a leader will ever receive. He turned slowly to Victor Holloway. He picked up the leather folio. He slid it across the polished mahogany. It came to a stop directly in front of Victor. And you, Victor? This was going to be a separate meeting, but since we're all here, open it. Victor did not open it. Theo opened it for him. Ridgepoint Vendor Services, Cartwright Consulting, Halcyon Logistics, 3 shell companies, all incorporated by your wife's brother, all paid by Brighthaven over the last many months. Total millions. Victor's face went from gray to white. The 2 FBI agents stood up. Theo reached for his silver pen, picked up the next paycheck, signed it. Now, he said, let us talk about what happens next. The 2 FBI agents walked around the table. They stopped behind Victor Holloway's chair. Mr. Holloway, the senior agent said, stand up and place your hands behind your back. Victor did not move. He stared at the leather folio in front of him. A line of sweat had broken out along his hairline. Mr. Holloway, stand up. He stood. The agent read him his rights in a calm, clear voice. You have the right to remain silent. The handcuffs clicked into place. Victor's knees buckled just slightly, and the second agent caught him under the arm. He looked across the table at Theo. His mouth worked. Nothing came out. Take him out the back hallway, Vivian Ellsworth said quietly. We don't need a scene in the lobby. The agents walked him out. The door closed. The room was very still. Theo set down his pen. He looked at Paige Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore, sit down. Paige sat. She had not realized she was still standing. What is about to happen to you is not happening because you tried to fire me, Theo said. People have tried to fire me before. People have called me worse things than what your team called me this week. I am an older man. I am not delicate. He slid a thin folder across the table. What is happening to you is happening because of these names. Paige opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were several personnel files. Each one a former Brighthaven employee. Each one older. Each one performance managed out of the company in recent times. Walter Briggs with many years of service. Eleanor Hodges with many years. Raymond Castellano with many years. The list went on. Every one of those terminations went through your desk, Theo said. Every one was approved by you. And in every single case, the performance documentation was created within a short time of the firing. After years of clean reviews, the auditors flagged the pattern months ago. I have been waiting to see how far you would take it. Paige's lips moved. Mr. Nash, the reviews, they were legitimate. They were not. Theo's voice did not rise. There was a directive from Mr. Holloway about reducing benefits liability on older employees. You took that and turned it into a quiet purge. You used the HR department of my firm to push out several human beings who had given us, collectively, many years of loyal service. This week, you tried to add another name to that list, mine. He paused. The difference is I happen to own the company. Paige began to cry, a small choking sound. The general counsel, Patricia, slid a single sheet of paper across the table. This is your termination letter, Ms. Whitmore, effective immediately, for cause. Severance is withheld, pending the outcome of a class action wrongful termination suit. The firm will be assisting the former employees in filing. You will be escorted from the building shortly. Your professional HR certification is being formally challenged. I would suggest you retain employment counsel. Paige put both hands flat on the table to steady herself. She did not look up. Theo turned to Harper. She had not stopped crying. Her mascara had run down her face in 2 black tracks. She looked like a child who had been caught doing something terrible. Ms. Alderman, how old are you? 26, sir. My mother was that age the year she had me. She cleaned offices in Birmingham 6 nights a week. She wore the same uniform you watched me wear. She came home with the same pain in her knees that you watched me have. Tell me, when you looked at me this week, what did you think my life was? Harper opened her mouth, closed it. There was no answer. That, Theo said softly, is the honest reply. You did not think. That is what I need you to sit with. Not the embarrassment, not the fear, the fact that you saw a human being and you did not think of him as one. He let the silence stretch. You have two options. The first, termination today for cause with no reference. You will not work in financial services in this city again. You are young. That will follow you for a long time. Harper nodded. The second, a probationary program. You keep your job at your current salary, but for several months, you will spend many hours a week volunteering at the Greenfield Senior Center. You will also film a public apology video on your own social media, naming what you did and naming me directly. The video will not be edited or scripted by us. It will come from you. At the end of the period, the board will decide whether you remain at this firm. She didn't need a moment. The program, sir. I'll do the program. Whatever you need, please. Theo nodded once. Then go home, Ms. Alderman. Take the rest of the day. She stood unsteadily. She made it to the door. Then she turned around, walked back to the table, and stood in front of Theo. Mr. Nash, I don't have the words. I'm so sorry. Theo looked at her for a long moment. I know you are, child. The work begins now. She left. Theo picked up the silver pen. He pulled the next envelope toward him, opened it, signed, Theodore Nash. He worked through the rest of the stack in silence, many more checks. When he was finished, he slid the entire pile toward Evelyn. Make sure everyone gets paid on time. It's payday. Yes, sir. She gathered the envelopes and carried them out. By the next morning, the entire building knew. Theo had asked Vivian to call a town hall. Mandatory. All employees in the main atrium at the start of the day. Anyone who could not attend in person was required to join by video. Nobody was excused. Theo stood at the podium in the same charcoal suit he had worn the day before. He brought no notes. My name is Theodore Nash. I am the founder, the chairman, and the majority shareholder of this company. Some of you have known me as the man who mops your floors. Some of you have known me as the name on the bottom of your paycheck. As of today, you will know me as both. The room was silent. I'm not telling you this to frighten you. I'm telling you this because a company that treats its janitor differently than it treats its CFO is not a company I want to own. And it is not a company any of you should want to work for. He turned to the screen behind him. I want to show you something. Some of you have already seen it. Most of you have not. The video began to play. The chant filled the atrium. Too slow, too slow. Many people watched many of their colleagues humiliate an old man on his lunch break. The chant played at full volume from the speakers. It echoed off the marble walls. When the video ended, the silence was absolute. Theo looked out across the crowd. I counted the faces in that room. I remember everyone. I am not going to fire any of you. That is not the point. The point is I want you to know I remember. A woman in the back row sat down on the floor and put her face in her hands. Effective today, Theo continued, this firm is making the following changes. First, an independent ethics hotline that reports directly to the board, not to HR. Second, mandatory dignity at work, training for every employee led by external facilitators. Third, what we will call the Shadow Leader Program. Every vice president and above, including me, will spend full days every year working alongside our custodial staff, our security team, and our front desk. Not observing, working. If you will not do the work, you will not lead the people who do it. He paused. Fourth, every termination of every employee over a certain age in the past few years will be independently reviewed. Where wrongdoing is found, those former employees will be offered reinstatement, back pay, and a public apology. Some of them are watching this by video right now. To you, I am sorry. We failed you. We are going to make it right. In a small house in East Charlotte, Eleanor Hodges watched from her kitchen table. She put down her coffee cup. She covered her mouth. She wept. In the atrium, Marcus Sullivan stood at the back wall in his security uniform. For the first time in years, he stood at full attention. Theo found him in the crowd, held his eyes for a moment, and nodded. That afternoon, Theo called Marcus into his office. Mr. Sullivan, sit down. Sir, you saw me when nobody else did for years. You saluted me every morning. Do you know how rare that is? I served, sir. So did you. That's all it was. It was more than that, son. Theo handed him a folder. Effective soon, you are the new director of building operations. You will report directly to me. The salary is in there. So is the title. Take a day to decide. Marcus opened the folder, looked at the number, looked at Theo. His eyes filled. I don't need a day, Mr. Nash. That evening, Theo took Evelyn Brooks to the steakhouse downtown, the one where he had taken her many years earlier when he had first hired her, and asked her to keep his secret. He raised his glass. To many years of silence, he said, and the woman who kept it. Evelyn, there is one seat left on the board. It is yours if you want it. Evelyn's hand went to her mouth. She had never in all those years asked for anything. Yes, Mr. Nash, I want it. Then it is yours. Outside the restaurant, the sun was setting over downtown Charlotte. Somewhere across the city, an elderly cleaning woman was pushing a cart down a hallway in another building, invisible to everyone who passed her. Somewhere Eleanor Hodges was calling her daughter, telling her, I'm going back to work. Somewhere Harper Alderman was scrolling through her own social media, trying to figure out how to begin the apology video. And somewhere in a federal holding facility, Victor Holloway was making his one phone call. It was not going to be nearly enough. Several months passed. Brighthaven Financial stock, which had dipped briefly in the days after Victor Holloway's arrest, climbed significantly by the end of the quarter. Two of the firm's biggest institutional clients called Vivian Ellsworth personally to say they were increasing their accounts. Harvard Business Review published a case study titled The Monday Walk, How One Founder Audited His Own Culture for Many Years. The article went viral in business schools across the country. Victor Holloway pleaded guilty in federal court in the following season. Theo attended the hearing. He did not sit in the front row. He sat in the back near the door in a dark gray suit. He listened as the U.S. attorney read out the charges: wire fraud, money laundering, falsification of corporate records. He listened as Victor's attorney offered a brief, hollow statement about regret and rehabilitation. He listened as the judge handed down the sentence: many months in federal prison, millions in restitution, a lifetime ban from working in financial services anywhere in the United States. When they led Victor out in handcuffs, he turned and looked back at the courtroom. He saw Theo. He held the gaze for just a moment. Theo did not look away. He did not glare. He did not nod. He simply looked without anger, without pity. Just recognition. I see you. I always saw you. Always. Victor looked down at the floor. Paige Whitmore's class action suit settled out of court for a substantial sum. Every dollar went to the former employees she had pushed out. Eleanor Hodges used her share to pay off her mortgage. Walter Briggs gave most of his to his church. Raymond Castellano took his grandchildren to Disney World for the first time in his life. Paige herself was named on a private do-not-hire list that circulated among HR executives across the region. Her professional certification was revoked. She moved to a small town in another state and took a job answering phones at a doctor's office. She never worked in human resources again. Harper Alderman finished her probationary program at the Greenfield Senior Center. She showed up every week for the required hours for many straight weeks. She read aloud to an older woman named Mrs. Pearson, who had been a school teacher in Mississippi during the Civil Rights era. She helped serve dinner. She wheeled residents to the garden. She sat with a man named Mr. Wilkins, older, who had no family left, and held his hand on the night he died. The director of the senior center wrote a letter to Brighthaven's board at the end of that time. Harper did not know about the letter. The director sent it anyway. In many years of running this facility, I have rarely seen a young person change as visibly as Ms. Alderman has. She does not know I am writing this. I just thought someone should know. When Harper returned to Brighthaven, she did not return to the finance department. She walked into Theo's office one morning, sat down across from him, and asked to be reassigned to the facilities team. She wanted to work alongside the custodial staff, the same people she had once mocked. Theo looked at her for a long time. Are you sure, Ms. Alderman? Yes, sir, I'm sure. He approved the transfer. She worked on the facilities team for over a year. She emptied trash cans. She mopped floors. She learned every name. Theo never spoke about it. He let her write her own ending. In the following season, Theo announced the Lillian Nash Scholarship Fund, a significant endowment open to the children and grandchildren of custodial workers, food service workers, hotel housekeepers, and janitorial staff anywhere in the state of North Carolina. Many scholarships in the first year, one for every year. Theo had run his company in his mother's name. At the dedication ceremony, he stood at a podium in front of many people and read the last letter his mother had ever written to him, the one from her hospital bed years ago. He got through most of it before his voice broke. When he stepped down from the podium, the room rose to its feet. A reporter caught him at the back of the hall as he was leaving. "Mr. Nash, do you regret not revealing yourself sooner? You could have stopped the harassment before it ever started." Theo paused. He thought about the question. "I regret that it was necessary at all," he said, "but I do not regret learning the truth about the people I trusted to lead. Better a painful truth than a profitable lie." He walked out into the afternoon sun. Several months after the reveal, Theo Nash put on the janitor's uniform again. It was a regular day. He picked one of the floors, operations and client services. He pushed his cart out of the service elevator early in the morning, the way he had for many years. The way he intended to keep doing for as long as his knees would let him. This time was different. The first employee who saw him was a young woman from the analyst pool. She stopped. She set down her coffee. She walked over. "Good morning, Mr. Nash." "Good morning, miss. Call me Theo." "Yes, sir, Mr. Yes, Theo," she smiled. He smiled back. She went to her desk. By mid-morning, half the floor had stopped to greet him. Some of them had been in the atrium that day. Some of them had not. None of them looked away. None of them pretended he wasn't there. Around mid-morning, a young new hire, a kid fresh out of college who had started the week before and did not yet know the story, walked up to Theo as he was lifting a heavy bag of trash out of a bin. "Sir, that looks heavy. Let me grab one end." Theo looked at him. The kid had no idea who he was. He was offering simply because an old man was struggling with a heavy bag. Theo smiled wide, the kind of smile his mother used to call his sunrise smile. "Son," he said, "you're going to do just fine here." That same payday, an envelope landed on the desk of Eleanor Hodges, older now, reinstated to her position in accounts payable, her first paycheck back. She opened it. She looked at the bottom right corner. She saw the signature, Theodore Nash. She had never met him. She had only ever seen him on the news. But she sat at her desk and cried quietly for some time. She knew exactly whose name that was. Down in the lobby, on the marble wall by the front doors, two new frames hung side by side. One was the business journal cover from years ago, a young Theo Nash at that age, holding the keys to a brand new building. The other was a photograph of a woman in a gray cleaning uniform, her hair tied back in a yellow scarf, her eyes kind and tired and bright. Underneath, in small engraved script, "Lillian Nash, she raised a man who remembered." If this story moved you, hit the like button. It genuinely helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Share it with someone who needs the reminder today. And subscribe, because next time we're telling the story of a young black doctor who was mistaken for the janitor in her own emergency room, and what her hospital did about it will leave you speechless. Until then, be the person who sees people.